The crowd was loud, shaking the metal walls of the arena. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy had come to see the tournament, a grand battle of warriors from different worlds. They had seen fire beasts from the red moons, flying blade dancers from Sector 9, and cyber giants from the steel planets. But today, everyone was excited for something different, something strange. Today, a human was going to fight. His name was Cain. And he was the only human to enter the tournament in over 50 years. He looked simple, no armor, no implants, no glowing eyes like the other fighters. He wore just black training clothes, and in his hand he held 2 sticks tied together with a short chain. Nunchucks, someone said, laughing. In the high balcony above, Commander Velsia watched with a smirk on her sharp blue face. She was a champion warrior of the planet Tyreek, known for her speed and plasma armor. Beside her stood her teammates, proud and confident. "Is this a joke?" Velsia said, pointing at Cain. "He's not even enhanced." The crowd laughed with her. "Maybe he's lost and looking for a museum," someone shouted. Cain didn't speak. He stood alone in the center of the arena, his face calm, his hands still. The gates opened, and Velsia dropped into the arena with a loud thud. Her armor glowing bright orange, she walked slowly toward Cain, each step making a deep metal sound. "Are you sure you brought the right tools?" she asked, mocking him. "This is a fight, not a dance class." Cain looked at her, his eyes quiet. He spun the nunchucks once, slowly, as if warming up. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "Combatants ready." A loud buzzer sounded. The match began. Velsia moved fast, faster than most beings could follow. She fired a plasma bolt straight at Cain, expecting him to dodge or scream. But Cain moved just a little, the bolt passing by his shoulder, missing him by inches. Then, in the blink of an eye, Cain stepped forward. His nunchucks moved not like a weapon, but like flowing water. They spun around his hand, behind his back. Then down in a sudden strike, crack. Velsia's arm guard shattered. Sparks flying, the crowd went silent. She jumped back, surprised. "That's not possible," she growled. Charging again, she swung a glowing blade from her wrist armor. But Cain ducked low, rolled, and came up behind her. Another crack. Her shoulder plate snapped clean off. Cain didn't stop. His movements were like a dance, but each step was deadly. Left strike leg armor gone. Right swing helmet cracked. Backspin, chest plate dented. The entire fight took 60 seconds. At the end, Velsia was on one knee, her armor in pieces around her, breathing hard, her hands shaking. Cain stood across from her, his nunchucks still spinning softly in his hand. He hadn't even broken a sweat. The arena was silent. Then, slowly, the sound returned, not laughter this time, but quiet murmurs, whispers of fear and awe. Velsia looked up at him, her pride broken. "How?" she whispered. "What are you?" Cain didn't answer. He simply turned around and walked out of the arena, leaving behind the pieces of armor and the broken silence. In the control room, the tournament judges stared at the replay. Frame by frame, no one could explain it. His movements were too fast, too smooth, too perfect. And those weapons, they had no power source. No tech inside, just 2 sticks and a chain. But in his hands, they were something more. Something terrifying in the crowd. A small alien child tugged on his father's arm. "Daddy," he said, "what happens if we have to fight the humans?" His father didn't answer. He just kept watching the screen. Eyes wide, far above the arena, Velsia, second in command, turned to his officer and whispered, "We laughed at the wrong species." The council chamber on Station Halron was silent. 12 alien leaders sat in a circle, each one from a different star system. Their faces were serious, some angry, some nervous. At the center of the room, a large screen showed the fight. the human named Cain defeating Commander Velsha in only 60 seconds. Again and again, the fight played on the screen. Every time, it looked impossible. "Pause it," said Grand Speaker Jurl, a green-skinned leader from the planet Kareth. The screen froze, showing the moment Cain shattered Velsha's chest armor. "With wooden sticks," Jor-El said slowly. "He defeated one of our top warriors with sticks." Another council member, High Admiral Rezek from the steel planet Volker, slammed the table. "He must be using hidden tech," Rezek shouted. "There is no other explanation." "No," said a soft voice. It was Speaker Niara from the moon world Selm. She looked calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Our scanners found no energy signals, no implants, no weapons," she said. "What you saw was real." Rezek grunted. "Then he is not human. He is," Niara replied. "And that is the part that scares me." The room fell silent again. She continued. "I warned this council when Earth asked to join the tournament. They are young, yes, but dangerous. They have no fear of pain, and their minds are strange. They can turn anything into a weapon." The others listened carefully. Speaker Jurl nodded. "Yes, I remember the reports. Earth fought more wars in 1,000 years than some of our species did in 10,000. They fought each other," he added. "Not for survival, for power, for pride, for ideas. And they kept getting stronger." Speaker Niara looked around the room. "There is something in them, something wild," she said. "Most species evolved for peace, for balance, but humans—" She paused. "They evolved for conflict." Back on the training level of the station, Cain sat alone. He was in a small, quiet room, legs crossed, eyes closed. The lights were dim, and the sound of his breathing was the only noise. On the floor next to him were his nunchucks, carefully placed like sacred objects. His mind was still, but sharp. He was not meditating for peace. He was watching, remembering, preparing. His teachers had always said, "Stillness is the weapon. Silence is the strategy." He opened his eyes slowly. There was no fear in them, no excitement either, just focus. Like a blade ready to move, outside the room. 2 guards watched him through a glass wall. "He hasn't eaten." One said, or slept. The other nodded. "He just sits there. Do you think he's a machine?" The first one whispered. The second shook his head. "No," he said. "He's something worse." Meanwhile, Commander Velsha sat in a recovery pod. Her armor stripped away, her pride in pieces. Doctors worked around her, checking her wounds. But she didn't speak. She stared at the ceiling, eyes cold. She replayed the fight in her head again and again, no matter how many times she watched it. The result never changed. "I was faster," she thought, "stronger, smarter. So why did I lose?" Her fingers clenched into fists. "I want a rematch," she whispered. The doctor beside her hesitated. "Commander, your body needs—" "I said I want a rematch," she growled. "I will not be remembered as the one who was broken by a human." With sticks in the media room, news of the fight spread like wildfire. Galactic reporters played the scene over and over, calling Cain the Quiet Storm and the man with the wooden death. Betting markets crashed because no one had predicted Cain would survive, let alone win. Some alien fighters withdrew from the tournament, fearing the unknown. Others trained harder, promising to defeat the human and take back their honor. But none could explain how he did it. Not with speed, not with power, but something else. Something they didn't understand. Back in the council chamber, Speaker Niara closed her file. "You wanted Earth to be part of your games," she said. "Now the game has changed." Speaker Jor-El leaned back. "What do we do next?" Niara looked at him, her voice soft but cold. "We watch," she said, "and we learn before it's too late." The research lab on Deck 7 was full of noise and confusion. Screens showed slow-motion footage of Cain's fight. played again and again from different angles. Alien scientists leaned forward, watching every frame, pausing every strike. How is that possible? One of them asked, eyes wide. Another replied, he broke armor rated to stop plasma blasts with wooden sticks. They zoomed in on the nunchucks, checking heat signatures, magnetic waves. Sound data, nothing. No hidden power, no energy surge. No technology, just wood and chain. One scientist tapped the screen. Look, his weapon does not bend, but it moves like liquid. His timing is perfect. Someone else whispered, too perfect. A tall researcher stepped back from the screen, arms crossed. This human, he said, does not fight like the others. He fights like he's been doing it for centuries. Meanwhile, in a private gym on the lower levels, Commander Velsha trained alone, her arms still sore. Her ribs not fully healed, but her pride burned hotter than pain. She slammed her fists into a steel dummy. Over and over, her breathing fast. I was careless, she told herself. I underestimated him. But next time, I won't. She turned to the wall, where a still image of Cain stood, his nunchucks resting at his side. His face was calm. Unreadable, not angry, not proud, just silent. I'll break that silence, she hissed. I'll make him speak elsewhere. In a dark observation room, a group of elite watchers reviewed Cain's profile. On a large screen, his life history was shown: birth location, Earth. Sector 19, no family records, no military service, no criminal data. He had entered the tournament alone, paid his own way, carried no weapons through security. Who trained him? One asked, unknown. The answer came, he is not listed in any Earth Combat Academy. Then how did he learn this? Another said, pointing at the footage, he fights like the old monks. A voice replied, but stronger. The lead watcher stood up. Keep digging, he said. This human is a threat we don't understand. Inside Cain's quarters, the air was quiet. He sat cross-legged again. But this time, his eyes were open. He was watching something on a small holographic projector. Old videos, grainy recordings from Earth's past, martial artists spinning nunchucks, practicing in open fields. He studied every movement with care, copying their form, not to show off, but to remember. To keep the knowledge alive, he stood up slowly and picked up his nunchucks. With a deep breath, he moved. The chain whipped through the air, the wood striking an invisible rhythm. There was no music, but there was flow. No crowd, but there was meaning. This was not training for battle. This was memory. This was respect, the way of warriors long forgotten by the galaxy. But not by Cain. Outside his room, two tournament officials watched through the camera. He doesn't speak to anyone. One said, doesn't eat with the others. The other nodded. He doesn't need to. He already knows what he is. In the betting halls, news about Cain spread like fire. Some called him lucky, others called him dangerous. A few alien gamblers offered huge money to any fighter willing to challenge the human. Take him down and become a legend. The posters said one large fighter, a six-armed brute named Kroger, slammed his hand on the board. I'll crush his bones like dust, he growled. No man beats me with sticks. But others hesitated, remembering Velsia's broken armor. Even the bravest felt the weight of Cain's silence. Back at the council chamber, Speaker Niara read the new reports. She looked over the photos. Cain walking alone, Cain meditating, Cain training with wooden weapons. There were no smiles, no emotion, no fear. She turned to her assistant. Have we found anything human about him? The assistant hesitated. Not yet, he said, but we're still searching Earth records. She leaned back, her voice quiet. Find out what made him, she said. Because if there are more like him, this galaxy is not ready. Far from the tournament arena, deep under Earth's surface, there was a place few knew about, a hidden temple carved into black stone, where no machines were allowed. Here, warriors trained in silence, under candlelight, with no audience, no rewards, no fame. This was where Cain was born, not by blood, but by discipline. An old master once told him, "One day, the galaxy will laugh at you." "Let them," the master said, "because after they laugh, they will fall." Cain remembered those words now, sitting in the dark before his next match. He was not nervous, not excited, just still, like a storm waiting to move. Outside, the crowds were wild, betting on the next fight. Today's opponent was special. A telepathic alien known as Zurak. Zurak had won 5 matches using no weapons. He simply looked into the minds of his enemies, found their fears, and broke their will. "Let's see what the human fears," Zurak said with a smile. Entering the arena, the audience cheered. Hoping to see Cain finally fall, the gate opened slowly, and Cain stepped in. His nunchucks in hand, his face calm as ever, Zurak tilted. His head, curious. "You do not speak," he said in a low voice. "Why?" Cain didn't answer. Zurak chuckled. "No matter," he said, "your mind will speak for you." As the match began, Zurak reached out with his thoughts. His species could enter minds like water through cracks. He expected to find memories, emotions, fear. But what he found was silence, an empty space, cold and clear. No noise, no fear, no pain. Just stillness, like a mirror with no reflection. Zurak stepped back, shaken. "What are you?" he whispered, but Cain was already moving. The first strike came fast, not at the body, but at the air near Zurak's head. A sharp snap from the nunchucks broke Zurak's focus. His mental grip slipped. Cain struck again, this time at the legs, dropping Zurak to one knee. The final move was soft. A slow spin of the nunchucks that ended with a light tap to the forehead. Zurak fell flat, eyes wide, not from pain, but confusion. The match was over. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know how to react. 1 second, Zurak was confident. Next, he was empty. Cain bowed slightly, then walked away as quietly as he had come. In the judge's room, the watchers were speechless. "This is not possible." One said Zurak has never lost. Another replied, "He didn't just lose, he was erased," back in Cain's mind. Images flashed old training sessions in the temple, the voice of the master echoing, "Your enemy expects fear, confusion, anger. Give them silence. They cannot fight what they cannot see." Velsia watched the match from her recovery room. Her anger burned again, but deeper now, colder. She no longer thought Cain was lucky. He was something else, something built, not born. Her fists clenched. "I will break him," she whispered, "even if it breaks me too." In the quiet quarters, Cain sat once more, cleaning his nunchucks with a soft cloth. He didn't think about winning or fame. He thought about balance, rhythm, the small things that held everything together, the chain, the grip, the weight. He trained not to defeat others, but to master himself, and in that mastery, others were defeated. Meanwhile, the alien council met again, now with worried eyes and softer voices. "This human. He does not fight for victory," one member said. "He fights like it's a lesson or a warning." Added another. Speaker Niara nodded slowly. "We opened the door to Earth," she said. "And now we see what waits behind it, elsewhere." In the city, children played with toy nunchucks, mimicking Cain's movements. Vendors sold masks with his face, quiet and cold. Some called him a hero, others called him a ghost. But no one could ignore him, not anymore. In the deep levels of the tournament hub, a team of alien scientists gathered in a sealed lab. Screens surrounded them, showing high-speed footage of Cain's fights. One showed his battle with Velsia. The other showed his win over Zurak, the telepath. All videos were slowed down to the frame, analyzed again and again. still. The scientists were confused. "It doesn't make sense," one of them said, tapping the screen. "His movement speed is within normal range, but the timing is not. It's like he knows exactly what his opponent will do before they do it." Another added, "They ran simulations, compared data, scanned for hidden signals or brain enhancements. But Cain's profile showed no cyber implants, no neural upgrades, no tech inside his body. He was fully organic, fully human. Yet he was defeating warriors with armor, weapons, and advanced minds. How?" At a meeting table nearby, a group of military tacticians watched the same footage. One of them, a war veteran with robotic arms, leaned forward. "He doesn't overpower them," he said. "He uses their power against them." Another officer nodded. "He waits, watches, then strikes with perfect control." "That's not luck, that's not muscle," she added. "That's something else." They played the scene again, where Cain dodges Velsha's plasma blade instead of running. He had stepped forward into the danger zone and countered. That was not normal instinct. That was training, old training, in the training zones above the arena. Fighters prepared for the next round. Many were nervous. The list of remaining warriors was shrinking, and Cain was still undefeated. Some avoided his name. Others studied him from afar. One fighter, a four-armed alien named Brooke, sat in silence. Watching Cain's fights for the 10th time, "I don't get it," he said. "There's no power, no flash, no sound." A teammate replied, "Because he doesn't fight to show off, he fights to end it." Brooke looked at the screen, Cain's quiet eyes staring back. "I'm not sure if I'm ready for that kind of silence." Brooke whispered back in Cain's room. The lights were dim, and the space was clean. He stood in the center, slowly moving his nunchucks in smooth, silent circles. Each spin was perfect, balanced, like a wheel turning with purpose. There was no music, no crowd, no scoreboard, just focus. Suddenly, a small notification beeped. His next match was scheduled 1 hour from now. Opponent, Gorlock, the Beast, a towering mutant from planet Drask, known for crushing opponents with his bare hands. Gorlock had destroyed a full battle robot in his last fight, but Cain showed no reaction. He simply picked up his cloth and continued cleaning the nunchucks in the observation tower above the arena. The Alien Council gathered again. This time, they weren't arguing. They were watching, learning. "Earth is not what we thought," Speaker Jurl said, his voice lower than before. Speaker Niara nodded. "Their strength is not in machines, it's in patience and control. And maybe something more," she added. "Something we forgot." Meanwhile, engineers in another lab ran more scans on Cain's weapon. They used heat detectors, magnetic sensors, X-ray analysis. Nothing unusual, just simple wood, aged well, bound by a light titanium chain. "It's just a tool," the head engineer said, frustrated. "A very old tool." "Yes," another whispered. "But in the right hands, even a tool becomes a storm." At the arena gates, Cain waited in the shadow, ready for the next match. He stretched his arms slowly, his grip calm on the nunchucks. Gorlock stood across from him, twice his size, muscle rippling like stone. The crowd cheered for Gorlock, loud, wild, hopeful. They wanted to see the human crushed, to prove Cain was not a myth, not unbeatable. But Cain did not look at the crowd. He only looked at Gorlock and waited for the gate to open. And deep inside him, there was no fear. Only one thought: big or small, fast or slow, all warriors break. The same way, the arena lights dimmed and the crowd grew silent. Something felt different tonight. This was not just another match. This was the final round, the last fight of the tournament. At one end stood Cain, calm as always, dressed in black, holding his wooden nunchucks. No armor, no shield, no helmet, only focus. At the other gate, Heavy steps echoed like thunder. Commander Velsia returned, but this time, she wasn't wearing her usual armor. She wore a full exosuit powered by dark energy forbidden on most planets. The armor was twice her size. Glowing red lines across its surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. H. A voice came through the suit's speaker, louder and deeper. "I'm not here to prove I'm better," she said. "I'm here to finish what I started." Cain didn't reply. He simply tightened his grip on the nunchucks. A low hum filled the air as the arena locked down. Steel walls rose around the ring. No exits. No way out. This was it. Winner takes all. The bell rang. Velsia charged first. Faster than before. Heavier too. Her exosuit had weapons on every side. Lasers, blades, shock bombs, and sonic cannons. She fired a missile, then followed with a heavy punch. Cain moved like water, sliding under the attack, stepping sideways. Turning his body with the smallest motion, the missile exploded behind him. But he never lost balance. Velsia attacked again. Faster this time. She was faster than ever, stronger than ever. But Cain was still there, moving between her attacks like he had seen them before. Not once did he strike. Not yet. He waited, watched, learned. Until the moment came. A small opening. A slow gear shift in her right leg. Crack. Cain struck, fast and sharp, right at the joint. The armor sparked. And Velsia stumbled. The crowd gasped. She roared and fired her shoulder cannon. But Cain rolled forward and tapped her ankle with his nunchucks crack. Another piece of the suit gave way. Her balance shifted. She growled, "Fight me, for real." Cain didn't speak. His silence was louder than her weapons. She threw a blade at him. Cain blocked it midair, then spun his weapon backward, striking her hip. Crack. Her left side armor cracked, the red lights flickering. Velsia screamed in rage, using her full power, slamming the ground with a shockwave. The ground shook, but Cain stayed steady. He moved through the dust, his figure like a shadow. He leaped, twisted midair, and struck her chest once, twice, then landed silently. Her chest plate broke open, sparks flying everywhere. Smoke poured from her suit, the system failing, but she still stood, breathing hard. Eyes full of pride and fury, she took one final step, raising both arms for a crushing blow. Cain stepped in close, very close, and gently placed the nunchucks on her shoulder. Then he whispered something. No one heard it, but Velsia did. She froze, her body tense, eyes wide. Then, slowly, her arms lowered, the suit powered down, falling apart piece by piece. She dropped to one knee, not in pain, but in understanding. Cain stepped back and bowed. The match was over. Silence. Then, thunderous applause, but not just for the winner, for both, for Cain's quiet storm, and for Velsia's final courage. She looked up at him, tired, but no longer angry. "What did you say to her?" Someone asked Cain later. He didn't answer. He never did. But Velsia smiled slightly and replied, "He reminded me, power is not in metal." She said, "It's in control." Back in the council chamber, the leaders watched the final battle replay. They didn't speak for a long time. Then Speaker Niara said, "He won without destroying her. He fought without hate," said another, "and still proved Earth's strength." Speaker Jurel nodded. "This human, he is not just a fighter. He is a lesson in the lower chambers." Cain packed his things, his nunchucks wrapped in cloth, his room left clean. No victory speech. No party. Just silence. And the sound of footsteps as he walked toward the exit. One guard asked, "Will you fight again?" Cain paused, then said quietly, "I fight only when the world forgets." And with that, he left. The tournament was over. The lights in the great arena were dim now, and the seats were empty. Only the echo of old cheers remained, floating like ghosts in the air. The name Cain was now known across the galaxy. He had arrived without noise, without weapons, without allies, and he had left as a legend. Across hundreds of planets, people told his story. In bars, schools, and homes, aliens described the man with wooden sticks who moved like a shadow. Kids swung fake nunchucks in the streets, copying his moves, even old warriors who once laughed at Earth now watched Cain's fights with respect. He didn't just win, they said. He taught us something. In a peaceful corner of the station, Commander Velsha sat by a quiet window. Her armor gone, her heart still heavy. She watched the stars slowly moving past, her hands resting on her knees. Someone walked up behind her. But she didn't turn. "You came to mock me?" she asked softly. "No," a voice said. "I came to thank you." It was Niara. The council speaker. "You stood when others would have stayed down," she said. "And you listened when most would not." Velsia nodded slowly. "I thought." He was weak, but he was stronger than all of us. Niara looked at her with calm eyes. "'Cause he knew something we forgot. That real strength isn't loud," she said. "It's quiet, far away." On a transport ship heading toward deep space, Cain sat alone, looking out of a small window. The stars didn't shine brighter after his victory, and no songs played in his name. He liked it that way. He wasn't looking for fame. He was looking for balance. In his lab, his nunchucks rested, still wrapped in cloth. He didn't need to hold them all the time. They were already part of him. His eyes stayed focused on the darkness beyond, not because he feared it, but because he respected it. "Where to now?" asked the ship pilot through the speaker. Cain answered with one word: "East." The pilot laughed. "There's no east in space, my friend." Cain simply said, "There is, if you've trained long enough." Back on Earth, deep in the hidden temple of stone, the old master watched the tournament recordings on a dusty screen. He smiled without showing his teeth. Another student stepped beside him. "He did well," the student said. The master nodded. "Yes, but more important than how he fought is how he walked away in the council chamber." Some members suggested inviting Cain to speak, to teach, maybe even to lead. But Speaker Niara said, "He doesn't need to be here. His silence taught more than our speeches ever will." In a small art gallery on the moon station of Relvas, someone placed a statue. It was simple, just a figure holding two sticks, head lowered. A small plaque read, "The man who spoke through silence and struck through stillness." Meanwhile, new fighters entered next year's tournament, full of pride and energy. They trained with blades, blasters, and tech, but some also trained with sticks. Not because they believed the weapon was strong, but because they knew it was never about the weapon. It was about the hands that held it, and the mind behind it. One day, a young alien reporter visited Cain's last battle site. She stood in the quiet arena and asked her guide, why did he fight if he didn't care about winning? The guide looked at the empty stage, then replied, because someone laughed at him. The galaxy never forgot Cain, not because he shouted, or conquered, or ruled, but because he came with nothing, and left behind everything: a memory, a lesson, a storm that didn't roar, but whispered, and in that whisper, there was power. The kind no armor could block, no mind could control. A quiet storm, born on Earth, and carried by silence. It had been for years since the quiet warrior from Earth shocked the galaxy. His name still whispered through battlefields and council halls, not as a man of war, but as a warning. And yet, no one had seen Cain since he left. Some believed he returned to Earth. Others said he vanished into the blackness of space. But rumors started to grow, and one of those rumors was true. On a dark mining planet called Draven 5, a strange incident occurred. A group of mercenaries attacked a small colony, looking for rare fuel crystals. They were fast, cruel, and heavily armed. The colony had no soldiers, no weapons, only workers. It should have been an easy raid, but something happened. One of the mercenaries, the only survivor, crawled out of the burning village, whispering in fear. He didn't speak, he said. He just moved like wind. What did he use? Someone asked. The mercenary's eyes filled with terror. 2 sticks, he said. 2 wooden sticks. The story reached the ears of the council. Some ignored it, calling it old fear, a copycat, a legend. But Speaker Niara didn't laugh. She called a secret meeting in her private chamber. This is not just a ghost story. She said, this is a message. Far away, in a remote star system where no map reached, a ship landed in silence. Cain stepped out, dressed in worn travel clothes. His hair was longer now, his face older. But his eyes were still the same, quiet and sharp. He walked toward a small school built on the edge of the desert. Inside, young students trained with simple weapons, staffs, blades, and yes, nunchucks. The teacher turned and smiled. You came. Cain gave a small nod. Placing his old wooden weapons on a table, I won't fight anymore, he said, but I will teach. Each night, the stars above this school glowed like slow-moving fireflies, and under those stars, a new generation trained. Not for war, not for revenge, but for control, for silence, for balance. But peace never lasts forever. In a cold system near the void line, a new empire was rising. A race called the Carnix began expanding, fast and violent. They destroyed planets, silenced rebellions, and laughed at old rules. They believed in power, tech, and fear. And they believed Earth was weak until they found a recording, a video, stored deep in an old database. A man fighting with sticks, breaking armor, defeating giants. Their leader watched the clip, unimpressed. This was years ago, he said. That man is probably dead. We have plasma swords and mindbreakers now. Wooden sticks can't stop us. But one Carnix warrior looked uneasy. What if there are more like him? He asked. The leader waved his hand. Then we burn Earth first. When the council heard about the Carnix threat, they argued again. Weapons, warships, alliances. But Niara stood and said one thing. Find him. The room went quiet. You mean? The human? Someone asked. She nodded. The one who taught us that silence can be louder than fire. Back in the desert school, Cain stood in the open air. Watching his students practice, he felt the shift in the stars, the tension building. Across the galaxy, one student, a young alien with wide eyes, asked him, Master, will you fight again? Cain looked up at the sky, where war was growing once more. He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, he said, I will not fight to be feared. I will fight so they remember. In the distance, across time and stars, the quiet storm began to rise again, and this time it would not come alone. It would come with students. Silence and the weight of memory, because legends don't die, they echo.